Oh, you got me trying to get comfortable. Welcome to Keep It Moving. We keep it moving. I'm telling you, thank you so much for joining us today. We have a heck of a show. The first half at 7 o'clock, we're going to have Mr. Marvin Cheatham. We call him Doc. And we're going to have a very interesting conversation with him. On the second half at 8 o'clock, we're going to have Diego Aviles and Myrdith Leon-McCormack. Diego is the CEO for the United Negro College Fund in New York City, and Myrdith Leon-McCormack is one of their board members. So that's going to be a very interesting conversation. And as you know, the United Negro College Fund is around the country. So we're just hearing just what one location is going to be talking about. But I'm honored to have this gentleman come on the air. And I called him up and I was like, you just got to come on the show. Let's just talk about all of this. And there are a couple things that I think are really important when we talk about community leaders and community leaders who really see the issues that are going on in your community. And this is across the country, but specifically, Doc Cheatham is here in Baltimore. But he's been so, I don't know how he had time to do all this internationally. He's been part of the international 1995 Million Man March, the SATAP March of Dimes, SADA Black Collegiate Black History Every Month, statewide. He was a former felon voter, Restoration, Maryland and Florida, voter registration, first in Maryland. Orioles reached 7,000 youth, men's blue suit health, removal of the Confederate statues. He's a member of Phi Beta Sigma, number 124. Southern Christian Leadership, NAACP, National Action Network. He's the first Black with the Maryland Association as an election official. He's a local and past president of 18 different organizations. He has an honorary doctorate from Sojourner Douglas College. He has a street named after him, 1500 North McKeon, and the skateboard park in the making. Doc Cheatham is a founder of the United Seniors, and he is the president and CEO. I do not want to waste any more time reading this illustrious bio. I need to have Doc Cheatham on the line because I just love this man. Hello.
Good evening. God bless you. It's an honor to be on with you.
It's an honor for me to be here with you. You know what? You send out emails a couple times a week, right? And and I
Usually
just
four.
okay, I was just being nice. So I read them, and I just need you to know that I'm falling out laughing. I'm falling out laughing because somebody needs to say these words. Somebody needs to say these words, and the people that are on that distribution represent a broad cloth of the community from a journalistic and from a leadership standpoint. And let's talk about why your voice is so necessary. What is going on? Because I've seen some stats that are out of this world.
Well, I would say first and foremost, and it's an honor to be on with you. Sadly enough, I think in the last 15, 20 years, and I lived here all my life, happily 71 years of age, so I'm a Baltimorean. I would say in the last 20, 25 years, our elected officials, who are, for the most part, predominantly Democrat and predominantly African American, they have failed us. And they have failed us in so many areas that we are now suffering to such a degree that it's almost tragic in area that you think of, be it education, health, uh, you name a situation. And we seem to be in the worst situations that I can think of, and I've lived here all my life.
hmm But when you say they failed us, if we were to say, okay, here, number one, we've got vacant lots. Number two, we've got 50 liquor stores in just one zip code, 21217. We've had 50 homicides in just West Baltimore. We've got neglected lots, 13 plus, disregardingly forgotten vacant lots. There are food deserts on the east and the west side. And how do we deal with all of those issues to make a community whole. How can you be whole if you don't have the infrastructure to do what you need?
Well, I hate to say you had to almost start all over, but we got to start with some of the most grassroots issues that are affecting us, drop our buckets where we are, and the community has to find what interests them and start dealing with it, whether it's crime, whether it's education, whether it's health, whether it's, grime and crime in your neighborhood. Everybody has to find something that they may have some interest in and get actively involved in it because nobody's coming to save us but us.
But here's something else, Doc. We sit down and we look at this. We've been through, I don't know how many mayors. I guess my being in Baltimore, my first mayor was Du Burns, right? And here we are today with Brandon Scott. What should our leadership be doing in this city given these large pockets of Black community do not have the infrastructure like West Baltimore near Pikesville, over there by the Reisterstown Plaza on the other side going towards Pikesville, or if we go north to some areas, there are different areas that are not predominantly Black that have all of the resources that they need. They can jump in a car, they can walk down the street, they can go to the store, they have all of the other services available. Their communities are rich with soil and grass and trees. How do we do a paradigm shift here in Baltimore? How do we make it not only livable, but lovable?
Well, I think first and foremost, we had to get our elected officials to listen more than they talk. We also had to have them have an understanding of what is affecting the communities that they represent. Many of our elected officials, you don't see them until like this year is a gubernatorial election year. We haven't seen some of our elected officials since the last time they got elected upon, which was 4 years ago. We got to get our elected officials to spend time listening to and walking through the neighborhoods that they serve and find out, what are the, I guess, necessities of the communities in each area. It's a little bit different in each area, and the problems are bigger in some and small in others. But if you have an elected group of people who don't spend time with the community, who don't understand the plight that we are suffering, there's a disconnect. And there's been a disconnect in Baltimore City, from my vantage point, at least 20 years.
I agree. What's really interesting is that you talk about the politicians, and we've had different politicians come and go, right? But the reality is that I don't care what position you're in as a politician, from the city council member on to the doggone mayor, or to the state senator or delegates. The reality is that Stop Shop and Save up on Bel Air on Hartford Road, that has not changed. It's still empty. There's still vacant homes, vacant lots that have been vacant for 15, 20 years. So that says, one, we're not dealing with the absentee landlords or owners. How does that happen? How do you allow that to occur, where you have communities of people where they have to walk past boarded up windows, or they see broken up, just decay. Really, it's decay. Buildings are literally, parts of which in East Baltimore, I see them all the time. They're literally decaying and the bricks are falling off of them. The windows are no longer there. You have part of the roof is hanging by a thread. And then we have this expectation that our children are supposed to feel loved and cared for in a community that shows them nothing but rot. How is that possible?
It's possible because one, we have to have some responsibility ourselves as residents. That we've elected people who have not served us well. In some cases, we have not elected them because the overwhelming majority of us that live in Baltimore City do not vote. It's kind of sad that you have to say that, but we take no ownership in the problems that we have until they get to the point where they are today. You're having over 300 homicides, and you're wondering what is the course of action. I'm sad to say that I've mentally gone to the concept. There's something called posse comitatus. That was a word that was used in the 1800s. It's an issue that a president of the United States can implement in a domestic area such as Baltimore when things get out of hand. I'm probably one of the few crazy people that still lives in the city that say that it's time now for the National Guard to come into Baltimore City. I know of no other recourse that we can use. Our elected officials are not representing us. The people from the police department, I think we have as many corrupt as we do good officers. And yes, we do have good officers, but it's reached a point in so many areas that we got to find different solutions. What has been used, like the mayor has a crime plan. Well, he put the plan in shape a year ago. It has failed. Our elected officials have failed us. We have food deserts. 25% of those living in Baltimore City are in food deserts. Many of our kids in our school system in Baltimore City are failing. So we had to look at what is a course of action in each one of those areas. And many times it's almost, sadly enough, we need to blow it up and start all over again.
It's really scary though, with all of those buildings downtown, many of which are now being turned into condos. So I just understood that the Ramada down at the harbor has just been turned into condos. And a lot of people are doing that in apartments. So you have a lot of the corporations that don't want their employees to be here in the city that are moving out, and they're leaving these vacant corporate buildings downtown. Not to mention the fact that we have in these public schools, the children don't have equipment at home. What are there are problems with the protocols going on in the school system? The children don't have the ability to get online, or they don't have computers. They can't get to their homework. Many kids have just been passed or just been failed. There are so many layers of issues. I mean, there's so much. I feel like I'm digging SHIT all the time because you can't ever get through it all. You can't get through it all.
Well, we have to look at, look at the community that you live in and find out what are the greatest needs of the community. Right now, and I call names. I'm too old to try to, I guess, be very polite. I just call it like I see it. We had three major community development corporations in this area: Druid Heights, Coppin Heights, Arco. We have community corporations that seem to think that building low-rise apartments is a solution. And here in Southwest Baltimore, I try to let them know, here's a clear example that in Southwest Baltimore and West Baltimore, we have built low rises, which basically increases the density of those two communities, Southwest and West Baltimore. What is the end result? Well, for Coppin Heights and Druid Heights, they making money, people are getting jobs, but what they do not see the negative effect is, and many of them are afraid to, I guess, debate me on this issue. When you increase the density in an already area that's filled with people, what you have is an end result is crime. Mm-hmm. What are the two largest districts? There are 9 districts in the city of Baltimore. What are the two largest districts that have crime? West and Southwest Baltimore. How do we equate that? We equate that they are averaging 50 homicides a year in Western and Southwestern district. What caused that? Well, you started building Coppin Heights and Druid Heights. You started building low-rise and apartments in these areas, increasing the density. You have not taken care of the people. We have a mental health problem. We have a
Mhm,
education problem. We have a recidivism rate problem.
mhm,
But you're bringing in more people into West and Southwest Baltimore, and the result is Western District, Southwestern District, both had 50 homicides each last year. We don't
mhm,
see any reason why it's going to improve. We have a
mhm.
police department, half of them are corrupt, half of them are doing good work, but the overwhelming majority don't live in the city of Baltimore.
Right.
That's another disconnect.
Mhm. And here's another thing that really is startling. You know, we see a lot of the police cars in places where there is a visible display of drug sales, and the police still sit in the car and they don't do anything. They don't arrest them. They don't get out and talk to them or offer some sort of rehabilitation kind of um, challenge. What do we do? We're
Well,
over 300. That's like a murder a day with 300 plus homicides in the entire city.
well,
Baltimore's
it,
not
it
that
could it
big.
could it could be double, if not triple that.
Right.
What we have
Those
to
are the
think
numbers
of,
we know.
we
Mhm,
have 300 homicides a year. We have 700 shootings that are not homicides a year. We are
mm,
averaging 1,000 shootings a year. Did you
a
hear me?
year, a
A year.
thousand.
We're averaging. We
Mhm,
have, praise the Lord, some of the greatest hospitals that any state or city can have. We have some of the top hospitals. If it wasn't for the great work that they're doing in these hospitals, saving us, we would average about 500 homicides a year because that's the great work that our hospitals are doing. Sadly enough, we have to look at, if you bring in the police commissioner, and our commissioner was put on a radio show last week. I want to mention the name, but a question was asked of him by one of the seniors. What are you going to do about the police officers sitting in the cars?
mhm.
Well, he really didn't have an answer. With those of us in West Baltimore and Southwest, we know that police have been sitting in the cars since before the Freddie Gray riots. They started sitting in their cars a couple of years before the Freddie Gray riots. And the police have basically said they're not getting out of their cars. Well, if you are the police commissioner and your staff is telling you they're not getting out of their cars, who's in charge? Are the employees in charge or is the commissioner in charge? And we're saying that's the situation that we have in Baltimore. We have elected officials that are only caring about what they're making, what kind of car they are driving, what community they're living in, but they really don't give a damn about us. I'm sorry I'm so blunt.
No, that's why I brought you on because no, I think it's sad. It's really sad that this is the way of life and people have gotten accustomed to this way of thinking that, oh yeah, well, it's always been like this, or it's been like this for 20 years, or it's been like whatever. That's no longer okay at all.
It's not
We
acceptable.
how do you even want to raise a child and bring that child up in this environment where it's more like the wild wild east and west, that if you have that many shootings, that many homicides, Baltimore is not that large. And so per capita, by consideration of other communities, it's not that big. And so if this is how we're taking it, and we've gone through this forever and ever, every year there's something new, some other reason why it can't change. But this is not acceptable. And so one of the things I'm really concerned about is who are the people that are living in this community, all these communities, and what are their community associations doing? What is the expectation that we should have from all of our elected officials? And they're not even, they're almost like demands, right? They should be demands that you want us to pay taxes, you want us to contribute to this community, but I can't get a return on my investment here. I
Well,
can't get a return on that investment in this environment.
okay. Well, we have to look at what we have done or not done so far as leadership is concerned. When you have a city council that now is probably the only city council in the United States that is still closed. We understand that the City Council of Baltimore will open up either April 3rd or April 4th. But on what basis did you stay closed for that long? You stayed closed that long because the residents would not get up and say, enough is enough already. We elected you, we are paying you. That is our city hall. That's not your city hall. But we've reached a point in time where until it hits on your door or your neighborhood, it doesn't matter. We've had a recent rash of homicides up in the Howard Park area.
Yeah.
I'm saying I'm real saddened that it has happened, but I say between the northwest section of Baltimore and the northeast section of Baltimore, it's only a matter of time that crime is going to hit you. Then you're going to rise up like Howard Park did last week and start screaming and hollering about what those of us in the West and Southwest have been experiencing for 7 or 8 years. Unfortunately, crime and violence, miseducation, boarded up houses is going to have to hit more of us for us to finally say, enough already. It's time for us to get actively involved. I went to New Shiloh Church on Monday. The purpose was I needed to speak to the ministerial group for Baltimore vicinity to let them know that I was reissuing a document that I had created about 9 years ago. And that's a little palm card. It's a little 4x6 palm card. But the palm card is called the 24 Commandments on Being a Good Neighbor. And I created it about 8 or 9 years ago because when I retired and came back home, I found that the neighbors didn't understand what it meant to be a neighbor.
To be
And
neighborly.
we're back at that point again. So we are now distributing. I passed it out to the church pastors at New Shiloh, and I said, we got thousands of these. We need to start right where we are and say, first, we got to take care of our own homes. Our kids are coming from homes where they're not getting training at home, and then we're expecting them to make adjustments when they get to school. I'm telling folks, how dare you have your dog walk poop on somebody else's front? How can you have a barbecue grill and you live in a row house? And what's going to happen if the house next door to you gets burned up? They're just some automatic things that you would think community residents would know. Don't you know you need to sweep your front at least every week, if not every day? They're just some fundamental things that this generation, because my generation, and I don't want to say your age because you look like you're 20 or 30, but
Child, we're the same. We're the same age. I'm just like 1 or 2 behind you. That's it.
but those of us that are baby boomers, I think we dropped the ball a little bit.
Oh, a
I
lot.
think by the time we got here, the stores were open, the colleges we could go to any, you could eat anywhere you want. And I think we had it a little bit too easy. I think some of the blame comes to us as baby boomers. But what has made it worse, that these next two generations that come behind us, you can't tell them a darn thing. They know everything. And that's why we in the plight that we in today. We can't tell them anything to do. Most of them don't belong to the PTAs. Most of them don't belong to the communities that they live in. Most of them don't go to church, mosques, or synagogues. So what the hell are we telling these people? You can't tell them anything.
So, but that also says that, there has to be as we look at community associations, community organizations, and the churches that you've mentioned, perhaps part of that development is creating a complete outreach program and looking at these churches as places of education and training. And so what we have to do is really sit down and be honest about where we are. I don't think that people want to be in a situation where they are unhappy where they're saddened by the noises outside. They're saddened by the shootings that's going on in their neighborhood. Nobody really wants that. And a lot of people don't want to be it. You can't go and say, can you stop shooting today? Or can you stop playing your music so loud? A lot of people are afraid to have those conversations with our neighbors that we used to have. Hey, neighbor, you knew your neighbor's name. You had a different kind of relationship. But we've changed all of that. There's this segregation of generations. There's this segregation of experience of communication. And that has to change. It
Well,
really
you
has to
mentioned two
change.
things. You mentioned two things. It's kind of funny. I do a senior citizen radio show now in Baltimore, and I used an opening and a closing song that really hit on the two things that you said. I opened with a song, and that is "Be Happy," and that is from a
Don't
guy
worry,
that's
be happy.
"Don't worry, be happy." But I used the other one at the end of the show, and that is "Happy" by itself. And
Mhm.
I'm basically telling folks we got to change our mental outlook on how we look at things. We got to start saying, "Neighbor, I don't know what you're doing, but if I could be of any help, let me know." If folks are out sweeping their front, why not come outside and help them sweep? If you have kids that are throwing trash, why not give them responsibility to do an Afro clean block and help clean up
Mm,
the block? I think the solutions are within our own communities. We can look at what are the state or condition of the communities that we're living in, and we can determine that we can make many of these changes on our own if we just come together. And I think, that's the last few days or months or years that I may have left. That's going to be my focus, trying to bring communities together. I put out a challenge a few years during the Martin Luther King celebration, and I caught a lot of flack from it, but it's now coming true. I said, with the 1,000 churches we have in Baltimore City,
mm,
ask the ministers or the imams or the rabbis to step out of their church or their mosque or their synagogue, walk 3 blocks in any direction, east, north, south, or west, and see if your community residents know who you are. Nine
mm,
chances out of 10, they're not going to know who you are
mhm,
because you have no relationship with the church and the
mhm,
community. We got to go back. We got to go back to where we had success. We got to go back to a faith, to a religion, to some type of worship other than worshiping yourself and the dollars that you make. We got to go back into our churches, our mosques, and the synagogues because that's where we had our greatest success. I think that's where we got to go back to get the success that we once had.
That's very interesting. I'm originally from South Bend, Indiana. And in South Bend, Indiana, we lived on the east side. And in the middle of this Black enclave of homeowners, we had a park. And it was called, and it's still called, Coquillard Park.
Hmm.
And it took up maybe 4 blocks going east and west. And at the end of the block was my elementary school, Pearly School, elementary school. And we all went to that school, right? And then I was I think it was this third generation of people to go and integrate Jefferson Junior High School, and then on, that was only for 2 years, and then on to John Adams High School, which we integrated as well. So I was the third generation to integrate, and there was literally only 1 or 2 of us in a classroom ever, and not all the classrooms, right? The East Side in South Bend, Indiana, we have an East Side reunion every couple of years. So our whole neighborhood, so all of these streets from Chalfont, Bissell, Soren, Minor, Cedar, Campbell, South Bend Avenue, and on, all the way down to Notre Dame University, we all knew each other. And we still have those relationships. Part of the challenge today is we don't have the relationships.
That's right.
We've not built community. I can sit down. I was talking to somebody from South Bend the other day, and we were laughing because between the two of us, we knew everybody's name in every single house on the east side, right?
Okay.
And in many of them, their grandchildren are now living there in their homes, where their children are living in their homes, or somebody that's related, but there's still a sense of community in South Bend, Indiana. Now, granted, it's a much smaller place, but the reality is that that's how Baltimore used to be. That's how most Black communities used to be. South Bend did not have ownership of that. That was happening in East Baltimore. That was happening in West Baltimore. And then as these people moved to Ashburton or wherever they moved to out by Morgan and what have you, we lost that sense of community. So, what is that bond? What is that base? What is that anchor that brings people to a place where they feel that they are now part of a community? And that's a different kind of thought process, that I'm part of this community, that I do sweep and my neighbors do help me shovel, right? There's a difference in how we see ourselves in the space that we live in. Or am I off base?
No, no, you're 100% on, and what you experienced in Indiana, and that's a great basketball town that you lived in. uh,
Central, Mike Warren. We had Mike Warren, UCLA.
yeah, but what we have, I guess, experienced. Some folks can say that integration was a positive for us. I think many of us look back, especially baby boomers, and say maybe integration was probably our negative. We
Right.
were doing much better when we were basically by ourselves. You went to the stores
Mhm,
that you had, you went to your own schools, and you took care of yourselves. Uh,
mhm.
we got to get back to much of that. We can't get back to the majority because, here in Baltimore, folks move out when they get education, a little bit of money. They move out to Randallstown, Ricestown, and Columbia Town, and they forget that they once lived in this neighborhood. And then they come back and they're amazed and I guess dismayed about the conditions of our city. So I tell folks, no one's coming to help us.
Mm,
That's the same situation with senior citizens. We have to
mhm,
decide that we have to do what we can. Some of us are getting a little old. We can't do that much, but everybody can do something. I remember in we've had so many great leaders die just in the last year. I've had
right.
at least one close death every week since
Wow.
January.
Yeah.
Uh, and we've had some good people, but I remember Israel Kason, who you probably met at some point.
Yeah.
Israel and I were doing a rally in West Baltimore near St. Edwards. No, St. Gregory's. St. Gregory's. That's on Baker Street. And what had happened was two youth got shot and they were killed. So
Mm,
we did a rally in the middle of the street, and while we were there, a lot of people walked by us because we were in Sandtown area. But 2 weeks later, we had another homicide, and we went to the same corner, and we all were in a circle, and we said, "Some of you walked past us 2 weeks ago when we had
mm,
the homicide, but now you're in the circle." And what Israel said to that, and it always stuck with me. Sooner or later, Baltimore, crime and violence is going to hit every neighborhood. The
mhm.
question is, do we wait till it happens or do we try to start doing something now? And I'm saying, Northwest Baltimore, you're catching it now. You're getting what we had for the last 7 or 8 years. Northeast Baltimore, you're next. You're going to be the next community that's going to see the crime and violence that we have here. The question is, do you want your relative be the one laying in that casket because you saw fit not to do anything? At some point in time, neighbors have to understand the solution is us. It's us.
It is us, and we can't ignore the fact that us have to do something, right? There has to be some movement, not only with us, but with the people that we touch on a regular basis. We cannot continue along this trajectory and have a different expectation of the outcome. You can't get there from here. It's humanly impossible. So when we sit down and we look at this and we say, okay, now wait a minute, if this is where we are, you know, Stop Shop and Save, they closed over here. Stop out Shop and Save closed over further east. You have problems with there's no food in your community. So people can't eat, they can't have a decent meal. And then you have all of these Asian bars. You were talking about there are over 50 liquor stores in zip code 21217.
Yes, ma'am.
50
50.
liquor stores. So you've got liquor stores, and then you have people going in there buying canned goods, supplementing their meals in the household from the liquor store, right? And
And
so, go ahead.
what makes things worse is not only not having food markets where you can get hopefully more than potato chips and a soda, but we have liquor stores. So along with zip code 21217 having 50 liquor stores and 50 homicides a year, the life expectancy is 70.
Mm,
Now you go to Roland Park or somewhere like that, the life expectancy is 84, 14 years
mhm,
more. I
mhm,
tell folks I live in the Sandtown area. My life expectancy should be over. I'm over
right,
70.
right.
But the life expectancy in the zip code that I'm in is age 70. If we
Mm,
don't do something soon, by the
mm,
next census, that number is going to drop even more.
mhm,
It's going to be
mhm,
about 68 or 67. We can solve some of the problems that we have. Uh, I think starting this year, the election was going to be in June. It's been moved back to July. I think one of the most significant things we can do is decide we're going to elect new people that will tell us before they get elected what they're going to do for us. We're going to document what we asked them to do and what they promised to do. And then 4 years from now, we need to pull out that report card to see what they have done. But I
right.
would say 90 to 95% of the current elected officials, from my vantage point, do not deserve to be reelected.
Mhm. So
90%.
that's that's everybody, huh?
Yeah.
That's everybody.
But
So,
what you had to look at is what I look at in my area. Let's look at who represents this area. Okay,
mhm,
United States Senator is Ben Cardin and Van Hollen. Cardin election doesn't come up, but Van Hollen's election does. He is the United States Senator. My community has not seen him in 15 months. Now, my good friend, I think you're a good friend as well, Kwesi Mfume is the congressman that represents this district. I support him strongly, but I haven't seen Kwesi in 15 months. My state senator is Antonio Hayes, excellent young guy. I look to see him become governor at some point, but I haven't seen Antonio in 15 months. I had 3 delegates. I have Ampry, Conaway, and Wells. Those are my delegates. I haven't seen them in 15 months. My councilman is attorney James Torrance. I haven't seen him in 15 months. But guess what? 6 out of those 7 are going to be knocking on our doors because they're running for reelection this year. And I
mm,
think the best thing we can do in Baltimore City is tell all of them, hell no, we're not going to elect you. You haven't done anything. And until we reach the point that we're going to begin to really look at who we elect and what they do and don't do, we're going to keep getting what we're getting. And that is little to nothing.
so in 15 months now, you've had, okay, so now I'm going to be there on the other side.
Okay.
So 15 months, we've been in the middle of COVID. So where you normally would see people moving around now, my state's attorney, he comes and checks on us, make sure we are all right over here. But, and that's Senator Corey. So, but how do we make that change? how do we make that change in an environment where we do have a pandemic going on? I mean, so where you would normally see them out moving around, I have to say this. I mean, we still want to see them. We still have this expectation, but how do we maneuver in an environment? I don't want to see anybody without my mask and my shield and my gloves and my hazmat suit. I'm not playing with this pandemic, right? So how can we have that expectation, and what are the alternatives? Because that's one of the first things people would say. Yeah, well, it's a pandemic. What do you expect? How would you meet them? Where would you meet them? What kind of environment could you meet them in to have those discussions that are necessary? Are
Well,
they not answering your call?
you have to tell the truth.
Uh-huh.
You may see Corey, and I love Corey to death. I don't mind telling folks that when he was running for senator, yes, it was in East Baltimore, but I was supporting of him financially, being in West Baltimore. Even though we have been in COVID for 2 years, I'm quite certain y'all have seen Corey
Oh, I see them
since
all
the
the
last
time.
election.
That's
I'm
right.
saying we are using COVID as an excuse.
I'm
You
just
know,
trying. Well, we got to say it because people will say, "Well, it's COVID," so we got to say it out
it's
loud.
it's not an excuse.
But what?
My
But
my
what's the
elected
option?
officials, my elected officials are on Pennsylvania and North every 2 weeks. What are you telling me? You can go to
Mm,
Pennsylvania and North, but you can't go to North and Bentlow Street. They want to go where they want to go. They want to go where the TV cameras and the newspapers or the radio stations are. But we're saying there are those of us that live with inside of Penn North that are not getting the service. Penn North is mistakenly thought of as the Freddie Gray area. There were
yeah.
only 4 buildings that were damaged during the Freddie Gray area at Penn North. Come
Mm,
6 blocks to the west, where Easterwood is, that's where I'm president of, we had
okay.
13 buildings that were damaged.
Wow.
13. And during that period of time, God rest his soul, I had to challenge our congressman, Elijah Cummings, and tell him publicly, we've not seen you, brother. So he came
Mm,
to the neighborhood and walked through. We made a bet. I said, I owe you a soda, you owe me a soda. When we finish the walk, you tell me, have you been through my neighborhood? He said, Doc, I owe you a 6 pack. I've been all around your neighbor, but I haven't been in it. We
mm.
we got to stop making excuses why these people that we have elected, but more so that we have paid to do a job to service us, and they have not done it. If you have not seen your congressman, your senator, your delegate, your councilman since the last election, he or she doesn't deserve to be elected. The hell with COVID. COVID doesn't stop them from getting your votes. We got to stop coming up with excuses while we saying, and we need to call it like we see it. We are basically elected by African American Democrats in the city of Baltimore.
Mhm.
So who do we blame? Do we blame Mr. Charlie for that? Or do we blame the black elected officials that are Democrats that we have elected?
Well,
We got to start
you got
calling
to
it.
blame the people that don't show up. That's supposed to. Now
That's right.
they're supposed to show up, but they don't show up. And so the question then becomes, why aren't you showing up? And if that answer isn't relevant, then they don't need to be re-voted in or voted back in. I mean, at some point, we have to really get people to the polls. We have to
Well,
really
we,
get
we got we got to do better than that, though. We got to first get them elected. When you look at the fact that the majority of citizens that are eligible to register to vote in Baltimore City are not registered, that's the first problem. Your majority are not registered to vote, and even half of them come to vote. That's the way the problem is. We
so
got to get people to understand there are consequences when you don't vote. I live in an area, our snow doesn't get shoveled. We got more
mm,
liquor stores and no food market. That's because our elected officials know they have nothing to worry. You're not coming to vote because you're not even registered to vote.
mhm. So here's another thing, and I think that's right. So the election is going to be this July, right? June,
That's
July.
right, in July.
And so by July, everybody should be in everybody's neighborhood. There should be a infrastructure somehow. I know the NAACP used to do get out the vote and to get people registered. They used to do a lot of those things, and different community organizations were involved in doing that. Are there any groups that you know of that are getting out the vote, or for people to get registered, to be sure that they're registered? Is there a time limit when they have to have their for them to be registered? What's the deadline on that? Or
I only know of a couple of groups. There used to be a time when there was just about every group had some type of voter registration project. I would say at this point, you might be able to name a couple. Black Girls Vote, they do register voters. Uh, Periodically the NAACP does, but we haven't seen a major registration drive since Barack Obama got elected. And that's, it's dropping your buckets where you are. Here in zip code 17, Sandtown, Easterwood, we have to realize that we have to give people a reason to vote. We need to tell them, you don't get your trash picked up sometime. Your garbage cans are laid out in the alley, not put back in your yard. You don't get snow shoveled when it's snowing. Your street potholes are not fixed, and that's because you don't vote, and they know you don't vote, so they're not worried about whether you get service or not. And we had to tell folks there are consequences to not you're not voting. There are consequences, and that is you don't get service properly. You know, how do we have in Baltimore City? Uh, in Baltimore City, the Western District has the highest percentage. There are 9 districts. It has the largest number of African Americans living in the Western District than the other 8 districts. However, how do we allow the election board for Baltimore City not to have a early voting site in the Western District? The
wait,
biggest
what?
Western District is Mondawmin area. Why is there not a early voting site in the Western District? We
Well,
can also say
where do you have to vote? Where do you go to vote?
early vote does not take place in the Western District. There is no early voting site.
At
The
all?
closest early voting site is either in Wrightstown Road or it's at Edmondson High School.
What?
That's northwest and that's southwest.
Right.
There is no early voting site in the Western District. We can also say, where is the Community Action Agency in the Western District? There is no community action agency in the Western District. There's one on Wrightstown Road, but there is none in Western District. And I'm saying, if you are a state senator, if you are a delegate, if you are a councilman, and you are an elected official in a district that doesn't have early voting, that doesn't have a mental health clinic, that doesn't have a community action agency, who do you blame but yourself as the elected officials? For Baltimore City, we are allowing these things to happen because we are afraid to call names out. We got to start calling these names out of people who are not serving us.
But I think you're right on point, and this is across the city. It's not just in Northwest, and on the West Side. It is happening all over. We have a disconnect in our communities. We have people suffering in each one of these neighborhoods, and at some point, we as city residents, we need to be doing work together.
Yes.
Right, together. It's better in numbers. So if I get everybody I know from near Redmond and everybody else on the east side, and you get everybody else on the west side, and then everything between northeast, northwest, southeast, southwest, and we pooled our resources and our manpower together and have this round table to deal with the discussion, because now we're talking about organizing, and we're talking about numbers, and that's a different impact.
It is
Because
a
the
different
reality
impact.
is, The reality is that we've got to be able to change our communities. We
Yep.
have to have safer communities. We have to have our children educated. We need to have all of this drug business out and the murders and all that has to go away. But we cannot do it just in our own little cycles. We've got in our own little pockets. As community leaders, as community people, we need to be pulling all of our strength and our resources and people together to make that happen.
Well,
I see Nia Redmond's on here. She says senators and congressmen have the answers. I think that's that's one level, but the rest of them they have answers too, but they have to give them to where they're needed. The answers need to be answered where the questions have been continually laid out, but there's nothing that changes them. And if we look at, go ahead.
We have to almost demand that we gotta put aside whatever differences we had. You know, we all come different families, we all come from different neighborhoods, but there are things that we have in common that we can work on together. You know, when the block is not being cleaned because we have not properly taught our children not to throw the paper in the street because somebody's got to still clean it up, that you don't just blame the kids, you give them something to do. You give them Afro Clean Block, you give them Baltimore's Beautiful program, you give them constructive things to do. When you look at the fact that, you know, you have vacant lots, you know, the community can take we'll take the 2 vacant lots we have in our block and we'll turn it into a little grassy area. We got to say that the problems that we are experiencing, they're within our reach to make the adjustment. The question is, can we come together with others to make that adjustment? Or we want to see what we saw in 2015. We told folks in 2015 that we had corrupt officers. No one would believe that we were telling we had to jump our boys, and the jump our boys turned out to be the gun task force. We were telling folks what was happening. We're telling them today, if you don't make a change within the next year or two, the homicide is going to hit more than it's hit already. It could be 1,000 homicides, not 300. 300 is only the ones the hospitals could not save. We average 700 more shootings than we do homicides, which is 1,000 shootings a year, which means it could very easily be 500 homicides. Guess what? We have more than homicides. We have drug deaths.
Drug dealers. That's
we haven't
right.
even talked about
Overdose.
drug deaths. And drug deaths are worse than shooting deaths, if you can believe that or not.
The numbers are outrageous, and you
Yeah.
see drug addicts on the corners and publicly. They don't care anymore. They don't have a will to live, and they're just going to be there. Wherever there is okay with them. And
our
go
drug
ahead.
addicts are our sons, our daughters, our
Yep.
mothers and fathers. We
Yep.
cannot kick them to the curb. But what we must also say is that Northwest Baltimore, you need to have a drug rehab center in your area. You know, Northeast Baltimore, you need to have a drug area in your area. Why is it that all the drug places, all the places that former felons come back to, is either in Southwest or West Baltimore? And we're saying we have to share in the responsibility of taking care of our own. I'm not saying we need to kick anybody to the curb, but we got to share in the responsibility. There are some neighbors that haven't had a drug addict anywhere near them. Penn North is not an accident. You got 7 drug rehab centers at the corner almost up north in Pennsylvania. Why do you think all those people out there? Ain't nobody giving away anything.
Right.
They're coming out of drug rehab. We got to take care of those sons and daughters that we have, but they all don't need to be at Penn North.
Well, you know, I think that I think this is a good beginning of a discussion, and I'm just so grateful. No, Doc, I'm just grateful that you came on, and I've been reading your newsletters, your emails that come out, and I just said, you know what, we need to say this out loud, right? And I want you to know that you're welcome to come back. right? Let's sit down and have an offline conversation and talk about a couple of things, and maybe if we could pick a couple of, we used to call it low hanging fruit, just a couple of little low hanging fruit that's doable to
I
see if,
have one suggestion that you might want to consider.
okay,
One of the most successful but easy to do things was the Afro Clean Block.
yep,
That we took pride in our neighborhood, how well we were decorating or cleaning up our neighborhood. And I requested some funds from the AARP. I want to bring back the Afro Clean Block.
they're
Uh,
not doing it anymore through Afro Charities.
no, unfortunately, COVID kind of affected a lot of things.
Hmm.
But I think, there are funds that are needed. I know that the Sandtown, Winchester area that experienced the Freddie Gray riots, most of the money went to affluent blacks and white folks. And those of us down in the bottom did not get anything. I'm
Hmm.
saying we can begin to turn this around by just doing some things. And I think Afro Clean Bot might be one of those because it gets us to get the children actively involved. They get some things to do. They have cookouts every week or every other week. We get them to clean up the neighborhood. The neighbors begin to introduce themselves to each other.
Right.
I think that's one very,
It's
very easy
community.
way to
It's
turn things
community.
around.
It's
You know,
community. It's
yeah.
bringing the community together. But to talk about what we were talking about, Nia Redmond says, what do communities do who do not want drug treatment sites in their area? Because clients hang out in the area once they've picked up their meds.
Well, we
So,
got to basically say this: if we have 9 drug rehab centers and we have 9 police districts, why aren't every police district being the recipient of one of these drug rehab centers? The
mm,
problem is that we have folks that live in communities, they're doing well, like Howard Park. We don't have no problems with them doing well. But sooner or later, you're going to have to deal with reality. And
right.
reality is crime and violence is coming to a neighborhood near you very soon because
Yeah.
it's growing. It's not
Yep.
getting smaller, it's getting
Hmm.
bigger. Northeast
Hmm.
Baltimore, you're next. And we're saying
Hmm.
you can do something now about it, or you can wait, like Howard Park did. They waited, and now it's out of hand. They screaming and
Hmm.
hollering like
Well,
we've
we
been
got a lot
screaming.
of it over here on the east side, child. I mean, don't, that's a whole nother, let me tell you, because we got to go, but let me just say this to you. So, Marvin, Doc Cheatham, we're going to come back. We're going to have some kind of regularity with this conversation. It is not over. We only get an hour here, but it's not over, Doc. So let's stay in touch
Okay,
because we got
thank
to
you. It's
go.
been a pleasure.
But I want you to know that you've got a big supporter here, and I hear you. And I know because we're already looking at some of that in the East Baltimore, right?
That's right.
So nobody is safe from all of the changes that's going on in a negative manner. And I was just talking to a friend of mine who's talking about Harlem. There's a lot of murders and shootings and things that are going on up there. So the world is changing for different reasons, and I'm not sure what they are, but we're going to focus on Baltimore and how we can maybe do a little bit more. So let's keep talking, Doc.
Well, let's keep talking, and I love you. Ain't nothing you can do about it, my dear.
Well, you know, and the feeling is mutual, sir. All right.
All right,
Woo.
take care. God
All
bless.
right. Marvin Doc Cheatham, thank you so much. And he has just been, every week we get something. He's running the United Seniors, and it is very important, and we need it throughout this city. So give us one moment, and we'll be right back with our next guest, Diego Aviles and Myrdith Leon-McCormack. Well, they're not here right now, but I'll keep telling you that was a great conversation. And I'll tell you something, we really need to have some changes going on in our community. And if we look around the country, there are other cities that are going through many of these same issues. but we have to organize, and people were organizing back years ago. We were laughing and talking about that, but it's time for us to change. So we'd like to welcome our next guest. Katania, okay. Hello, Diego. How are you?
Hello, Marsha. Thank you so much for having me today.
Yes. And so Diego Aviles is Aviles. Is that right?
Aviles is fine.
Okay. And you are the CEO for the United Negro College Fund out of New York.
No, I'm actually the vice president for the Northeast
For
for the
Northeast.
United Negro College Fund.
Outstanding. And so how long have you been with the organization?
Been with UNCF for 4 years, but over 20 years in youth serving organizations.
So tell us about, this is 2022. What's going on with United Negro College Fund? What are they doing to work through their programming in the Northeast section?
Sure, absolutely. And thank you so much for having me on today, because I think many people in our community are not aware of all the things that UNCF does. I know that obviously the iconic motto, "A mind is a terrible thing to
Terrible thing to
waste."
waste. Yep.
So we've been around since 1944, but basically three areas. One is
Mhm.
second to the federal government, we give $100 million in financial aid for students of color to be able to get to and through college. And
Mhm.
many families don't know about that at all. So number one is making sure that families and on your network throughout the community know about the funds that are available through UNCF. And then I think the second thing that we really work on is we know that getting to and through college is not enough. So we want to make sure that we're providing young people of color with access to opportunities, to careers and companies and industries that are so
Mhm.
dire need for their talent. So those are kind of the two primary areas that we've been really laser focused in 22.
So are you doing actual job placement, or are these for young students who are doing intern programs? Are there combination, or how does that work?
Yeah, no, a good question. So we kind of fell into the space of career and access opportunity through our scholarship program. So we have a robust database of about 1.2 million students. We're always in connection with the 102 HBCUs in our network, not just 37 member colleges within UNCF that are part of our network, but all 102. And as companies, we're saying, well, we're looking for talented, diverse talent for our company. We're trying to develop those pipelines of talent with HBCUs. We started getting into that space where we're doing a couple things. One is we work as an intermediary to help companies find that diverse talent. But second, also make sure that those students are prepared for
Mhm.
those internships, for those jobs. For instance, we're doing currently a program called Lighted Pathways, which is not only identifying students, helping to uplift them. This is specifically in the asset management industry, uplift them into learning more about the industry by individuals that look like them. We know
Mhm.
that many young people today look around, they don't see anyone that looks like them, they're going to go elsewhere. And then that access to opportunity with those on ramps at the companies and internships, job placement, whatever they have for that company. And then the critical component, and we're doing this specifically right now out of Boston, is connecting to community. We know that young people, as they go to different internships and companies, they they say, well, no one really spoke to me. I didn't know where the church was. I didn't know where to cut my hair. So as this part of the Lighted Pathway program, it's a very holistic effort to make sure that young people not only have access to opportunity, but in today's age, obviously, as the conversation has been during this pandemic, is if you feel like you belong, you tend to do better. So we want them to be able to connect it to those pillars of African American communities so they're more likely to thrive.
I think it's really important, but what is really interesting is that we have to deal with the fact that there are a lot of people who are still in industry and government, that, and in some parts of education, that are not dealing with diversity, inclusion, and equity. in looking at the numbers, how do you all work around those issues in the preparation for your students that are coming out of the UNCF programs?
Sure. I think, after 2020, a lot of companies and industries started putting a mirror to themselves. I think they realized that, for a long time, they looked at where senior talent came from and they went to those schools. But after 2020, they realized, whoa, maybe we weren't very inclusive. We weren't very, making sure that we were providing access to everyone. And then some of these companies decided to go and say, all right, great, we found historically Black colleges and universities. And a couple of things. One happened. One is if they were going to certain schools, and there are other companies that have been there for a long time. And then as they were going to other schools, they would reach out to, and obviously our HBCUs are under-resourced. And that has been obviously the things that we've been working so hard for, to make sure they have the resources that they're able to do their jobs. But as they called the counselor, they would say, great, we have a job, we need you. First of all, the school would say, who are you? Number two is sometimes they wouldn't be able to get in touch with the company because they might be the teacher, they might be the guidance counselor, they may be the fundraiser. So enter UNCF, who has been in our schools as a trusted messenger. Sometimes you trust the messenger more than the message. And we were able to serve as a new position to be able to companies in asset management that are looking for students of color, companies in life sciences that are looking for for students in the life sciences, where we were able to recruit the students, prepare them, and really start to accelerate the process. We know that obviously HBCU students do very well in the industry, and all African American students, but how can we accelerate the process? How can we make sure that more students are able to enter those industries that are in so dire need? Asset management, the wealth gap has not gotten better since the 60s, right? For African Americans.
That's right.
So how do you do that? Well, you do that by having more people that look like the community you want to serve.
And that's really powerful, because one of the things we were talking about a couple of days ago, some friends of mine who went to Dillard, and how do you really take that experience, because that experience treats you the way that you need to be treated, and you're going through this wholesome experience, and people they're all working towards you being your best self, right? That you're learning all the things that you need to accomplish your dreams. And yet when we leave that sacred space, and sometimes, and too often, we go into another place that does not afford us that same type of comfort. And it's very difficult in many cases. I know that that's not all you all do, and that's not your necessary mission, but it's a reality that we have to be able to make that segue into an environment that isn't always welcome. And I don't know how it's almost like there needs to be a buffer, like this little buffer organization, that you come in and you have this whole transformational experience that gets you ready to deal with some of the things that are going on in many of these major organizations that have not made 100% commitment to a DEI, right?
Correct.
And it's huge. It's huge. And some of the experiences that people go through, and ultimately they end up sometimes starting their own businesses because it was too difficult. And I have several friends that has occurred. So has anybody ever talked about some of those challenges?
Oh, absolutely. And I think some companies are doing better than others.
Yes.
Some companies, originally were great. We just got to get the young talent coming in. And to your point, if there's no change at the top, those young people are going to say, ooh, there's no one there that looks like me. I'm out of here. But a lot of companies are starting to say, well, we need to go and get senior leaders of color. And we need to make sure we have more senior leaders of color because they also fish in different ponds. And we want to make sure that they're able to bring people, people tend to stay in communities. So if we're able to get more senior leadership of color, then that's how we'll be able to attract and be able to retain that talent versus just getting them at the entry level.
Mm-hmm. Now, I'm going to turn the page because you have something really hot and exciting coming up over there in New York. Too bad it's COVID because I would certainly be up there.
Yes, no, absolutely. We're very excited about coming in person again, gathering this Thursday at Cipriani's 42nd Street. We have our UNCF A Mind Is Gala. We're expecting more than 450 guests.
Wow.
We have the pleasure of honoring Citi, MetLife, two stalwart partners that have been really with us for a long time and having our back and the back of HBCUs and helping us to advance educational opportunities for young people of color. And then we're providing a leadership award to Kim Godwin, president of ABC News. She's a Rattler from FAMU, and she is the first African-American to lead a major news network. And we're delighted about having the opportunity to honor Kim as well.
So how can people, are there still any seats available? Can you leave a number or an email or something or a website that people can follow up or are you sold out?
Yeah, we're sold out of capacity at this point, which is good. But more importantly, I think the purpose of this event is to obviously raise funds to ensure that more students of color are able to get to and through college, uplift our HBCUs. We would love, obviously, your guests to be able to go to uncf.org and learn about the scholarships that we have daily opening up for students of color. Please go there. If you know a young person, there's so many young people that, especially in today's pandemic, with the disconnection, that they don't have that mentor. Sometimes, we all have kids. I have two grown kids, and they don't listen to me, but they always listen to that mentor, that coach, that other person that's not the parent that says, "Hey, have you thought about this? Have you gone here? I just heard about this on the news, on the radio, on Marsha, wherever." Please go to uncf.org, and there's some scholarships for all different careers. That's what we would love for your guests to know.
Okay. Listen, I know you got a dash. We want to thank you so much for taking the time out to visit with us. And we'll have to have you back to talk more about UNCF and all the good work that you're doing. And we want to hear about the gala after it's over.
Absolutely. I'd love to come back, and thank you so much, because having you and your voice to be able to share the word, allow us to share the word of UNCF is so greatly appreciated, and we appreciate you. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Diego. United Negro College Fund. Thank you, and wishing you the best.
Thank you, Marsha. Bye-bye.
Oh, gosh. And our next guest that's coming up is Myrdith Leon-McCormack. And she is one of my dearest friends, first of all, and the owner and publisher and of everything for World Bride magazine, as World Bride magazine travel. That's a whole new division. She don't know about that one yet. And then she also owns MLM Represents. So she's a publicist and marketing guru. She's always trying to tell me what to do, but she's all over doing all the wonderful things. Just bring her on so we can catch up. She's also a board member of the United Negro College Fund.
Well, leadership team. Hey,
leadership
I'm on the
team.
leadership, not on
Excuse
the
me.
board yet.
That's right. Okay. That's
It's
all
coming.
right.
It's coming.
You know, but the
I'm
leadership
claiming
team, right? Well, the leadership team is a leader, so the same variation on the same thing. So, and you already running it anyway, so whatever. Because I know you are.
I know how to push my way through in.
We already know. I don't even know why you keep saying that. You don't need to even. You don't even need to define that, girl, for real. Hey, you've had a full day.
What? I need some sleep. I had to take a 15-minute nap before I came on with you.
I know, because you were rocking earlier. The Black Business Expo.
Yeah,
It's
because
happening.
we do what we do. It is our responsibility to take care of our community, do our part. We can't say Black Lives Matter only when bad things are happening. We need to do it and celebrate each other when good things are happening too, so that it's that constant affirmation that, we're capable, you're good, you're beautiful, you're kind. Let's go do it. That kind
Right.
of thing. Yay,
Right.
the cheerleading stuff.
What made you get on the leadership team for United Negro College Fund?
Lisa Banks.
Relationships mean everything,
Yeah,
right?
it's total relationships. It was Lisa Banks. She was working with me, helping me grow MLM Represent as well as Worldwide Magazine. She worked with me for maybe 4 years, helping me do PR, marketing, branding for the company, and just helping me grow it. So, that played a really warm spot in my heart. And then when she had this opportunity to leave and go to a big paying job, I was like, girl, go. I'll see you later. And if you need my help, just let me know, and, and that mattered to me. And then it was a great organization. So I was like, hey, and if they ever need any PR assistance, please, I'm here. And especially for something like that, I would love to support. And she took me up on it. And she's like, hey, I want to pick your brain. Can you come and help me do it? And so for a couple of years, and you were a part of it, I helped her. I came up with concepts that was non-traditional to help draw younger people, more different people in the fashion world, because that's my arena. I stick to my lane. My arena is fashion and entertainment, and I had access to celebrities. So I was able to bring celebrities, as celebrities would attract people, and that would make people, want to give generously, and genuinely as well. And the ball just kept rolling, and and it became easier for me to ask my friends, because like your famous words is low-hanging fruit first, and that's what I took advantage of. I made sure that I went to my low-hanging fruit, and the low-hanging fruit for me was my inner circle, was my clients, that I would tell them, hey, listen, this is a good cause, it's a great organization, I'm on the leadership team, can you make an appearance? And at that time, my clients were looking for ways to build up their reputation anyway, or come back into it. So for them, it was a win-win either way, and it was something that they genuinely believed in. And they had great events at the Hamptons. Oh my God, who's going to say no?
Right.
Great galas there. So for me, it was just like, it's a no-brainer, so it's, the saying is, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life, and I was passionate about helping, that's always been my thing since childhood. I've never had the campus college life experience, but I've always loved it, from seeing old movies like School Days and, all of that. I was like, A Different World. I was like, oh my God,
right.
Black people, that was me, so I felt, I was like, oh my God, I could still be a part of it in some way, even though I was never a student. So people ask me all the time, oh, did you go to an HBCU? Absolutely not. First of all, my mother wouldn't even let me go to college outside of, she wanted me to go outside and play and ride my bike. So you think she's gonna let me go out of state? No,
I don't think so.
That Haitian mama was not gonna let me out of her sight. Wasn't happening. And so for me, oh yeah, she was gonna do that. But so for me, I felt like, oh my God, in some small way, I can be a part of something wonderful. And I think I worked with, it was Lisa, Fred, and David Walker. Those three people, and they just warmed me. And I think Warren is still there. And they just respected and honored everything that I brought to the table. And I just felt like I mattered, like my opinion mattered, my business opinion, all the things that I accumulated with my knowledge, my experience, was finally being put to use for the benefit of the next generation. So it was wonderful. And so when they left, I think I stopped for like 2 years. And then during the pandemic, it just, the passion came back again. And I called David, I texted him, I was like, David, where are you? He's going, no, I'm in Atlanta. I retired. I'm not here anymore. But call, Diego and see. I called Diego, messaged him. I mean, within, if not hours, if not days, this
Mhm.
man messaged me. He's like, "Oh my God, I would love to have you.
Right.
Yes, come." There was no,
Mhm.
"Oh, well," no, he was like, "Oh my God, yes."
Mhm.
And I just said, "Hey, I don't care where you put me. I'm here to help. I'm here to support. What can I do to help?" And then Lisa had started the walk run. We started
Mhm.
doing it in Prospect. I think it was in the first one was Roosevelt Island, and then we went to the park, Prospect
Okay.
Park. So I got a chance to do all of that, and they managed to still keep that, which is so wonderful because Lisa's the one that really started that. And so it was good, and it keeps expanding. And I was able to do that even during COVID. We walked and ran in place. So wherever you were, you just did it, and we posted our pictures. So it made you feel like they're not looking for a lot. Wherever you are, that's where they were meeting you.
Mhm.
So that was my involvement. And then so he invited me to start coming to the meetings. And Marsha, I'm sitting at the table with some of the most extraordinary people that I've
Right.
known in business. I've either heard about them in media, read about them, or my company has been doing business with them, indirectly. Now I'm meeting with the bosses, and
Right.
everybody's a boss at the table, and they all attentively listen and
Mhm.
see how they can work. Not one person, not one of those bosses has an ego or like, no, 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 you can't. They literally like, okay, what can you do? It's everybody start digging. You take the shovel, hold this, get the rope. It is
Mhm.
everybody, all hands on deck. So for
Mhm.
me, it's like, yeah, I'm in the right place. I'm giving to the right people. I'm giving to the right cause. And then I had offered Diego, I was like, hey, I don't have much money with our company because we're a small company, but I can hire part-time a couple of students. How do I go about it? He put me in touch with a couple of people. I did a speaking engagement with Carla Nelson, who has Black Fashion World, which is happening this week. And she turned around and said, oh, you should come and be a speaker there. And I was like, oh, not a problem. She asked me to speak, and I brought again my clients then, Yemi, Beverly Johnson, Mickey Taylor, everybody, and said, hey, do you guys want to be on this panel to these students? Because I then found out that HBCU had a fashion college.
Yeah.
Clark Atlanta, I never
Mhm.
knew that.
Mhm.
I was oblivious to it. So it was like, oh my God. So more meaning. And so
Mhm.
I was the honor to be able to bring these icons to speak to these amazing students. And then I was able to hire two of them for a summer, bring them to New York to help me with clients.
And they did a good job.
I'm at peace.
Mhm.
I'm at peace. Like I feel okay. If you ever wanted to, you ask God, what have I done? This is enough for me,
Mhm.
you know?
But you've been doing programs with interns for a long time. So this isn't your first rodeo with interns. And so I'm a witness to that. And I think that that's a very good conversation because too often we have young people who do not have the opportunity to get really solid internships with people who look like them. And that is really important so that they can get that grounding, right? They get that space where they can find peace, but they can also learn. So they're not dealing with all those traumatic experiences sometimes happen in corporate environments. And so you and I were talking earlier about diversity, inclusion, and equity, and some of the challenges that we have to go through dealing in these environments. And so, as a young person coming out, we want them to have the peace that they can hold inside of them in order to do the job to the best of their ability. And if you're stressed out and if you're being traumatized in a work environment, which far too many of us go through, then it's very difficult to even maintain that position, which is why some people or a lot of people go into business for themselves because they don't have to deal with that kind of foolishness.
You're right. You're absolutely right. And that's what it is. And it's unfortunate. So there's two sides to that coin. And I realize it more and more working with UNCF and the students, because they are helping underprivileged students that don't have access to college and college funds get into college by getting scholarship. So the $760,000 that the organization already raised and the party didn't even start is huge. And this is not the party's cost. They raised this money, and this organization, they created a spreadsheet of what costs is and whatever, so that the students benefit more than, it's not a group of wealthy people just partying for the heck of it. These are people that really want to see these students win. And so when something like this happens, it's because we're asking people with means to help those that don't have. So these students, they want to be in certain environments, but because they lack the opportunity, what happens is they never get there. Why? Right. Because some of them come from rural areas, underdeveloped communities. What you were talking about, students that don't even have laptops, they don't even have Wi-Fi.
The internet. That's right.
You know what I'm saying? They don't even have that. So they, even if they had a laptop, how are they going to do their schoolwork if they do it? And then while COVID was going on, they can't go to the library and do it. So how were they going to learn from home? So it made it really impossible for these children. So the thing is, so now you tell them, you can go to college. I hear this all the time. You can go to college, you can better your life, you can get out of the community. That sounds amazing. How am I going to do it? Right. My mama works 36 hours a day. I barely see her. I'm a latchkey, kid. So how am I going to get money to do it? Oh, wait, you're giving me a job? Oh, wait, you're not paying me for it? No, I can't do it, because they're part of the economy that comes into it. So, they want the opportunity, but they're not given it. And they can't afford to take it 90% of the time. That's what I learned. I was always like, oh, come on now, y'all can intern. You don't need to be working at no McDonald's. Why don't you just take the internship and then you'll be out? No, you don't understand these young people's situations and what they're contending with at home.
They have to eat.
Yes.
They have to eat. They have to have a roof over their head. They got to pay the light bill.
I had to literally check myself and say, stop being so judgmental and think you know their situations. You don't know their situation. You don't know their family situation. You don't know what they're trying to do. Be a solution. So for me, being on the leadership team has brought, first eye experience as to what they're doing and what's the challenges. I think in one of our meetings, they invited a graduate, and she was an alumni, and she got and she worked for one of the board members, and she graduated with scholars. And this girl, I think she was in foster care, almost in and out all her life. And she went to college and graduated. And so for me, it broke my heart with pride and joy, and it just gave me more understanding, to have more compassion, and to say, like, okay, I can't pay you much, but I will pay you something to get it. So I'm going to respect your time and show you your value and deserve to be paid. Plus you need the money, but at the same time, I expose you to as much as I can, so that you can get a taste of it. And when you find a bigger company, I will be your reference, and you can do what you need to do to keep the ball rolling. But in some small way, my companies were a part of your journey. And I have, here's my phone number. You can text me. Sure enough, Marsha, it's so odd that we're having this conversation today. One of the students that interned for me this summer, she literally texted me, "Hi, Miss Myrdith, you were on my mind, and I just wanted to say hi."
That's wonderful. But you make an impact on these young people. You are giving them experiences that they could never even dream of. Right. And so with the resources that you have and the people that are in your circle of influence, those are opportunities grown folks can't even tap into many times. And so for them to be, for each of them, I've met a couple, they were totally delighted. They were delighted. They were just grateful to be able to have that experience. And one of my other sayings is that you have to see yourself there. You can, people can talk all around you, they can talk to you, they can be all in your face, but these young people have to see themselves there. They need to be able to get up and go sit in a chair in that office on, what was that, the 10th or 12th floor,
Right.
and
I think we were on
overlooking
the 27th floor. We were on the
right,
27th
that's
floor.
right, and
They had their own
overlooking New York,
cubicles, everything. Yeah.
everything. And so to be able to live and say and turn around after that experience and say, okay, I know what I want. I've had this experience. Because if you can't see yourself there, it's hard to have a conversation or expectation that you can go to the 27th floor. It's really hard to do that if you don't even know that the 27th floor exists and that there are cubicles for you to have your own little space. And so we all need to be thinking and having conversations about internships, because internships are very important. We can't dismiss them. And maybe it might only be for a summer, or it might just be through a Christmas or holiday break. It's still an experience, no matter how short, but I call them MIPs, memories in progress. That you're going to go have this experience, and 5 years later, 3 years later, you're going to be in an environment and you're going to remember that 27th floor and your takeaway from that 27th floor. That experience will be with you. And what we have to do as a people, we have to give our young people, be it UNCF or any other schools that we have in our communities, we have to create MIPs for our young people.
I agree. I agree. It's really important because, young people, and I think today, before we had a small window, you only saw certain things on TV. I'm going to talk about my childhood. You had a couple of channels and that's it. 2, 4, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13. Those were the channels that we had. You got to see mainstream stuff, the award shows here. Now you have over 1,000 channels plus social media, plus television, plus YouTube. I'm like, oh my God, these children are inundated and they don't know what's real, what's fake. It's overwhelming.
Right.
So, I have had to ask myself to be patient and help them draw. And it's just way too much information. I'm overwhelmed with information, and I've been here a while. So can you imagine these new young people? They're like this, spinning, like, oh my God. You know how when you go into a big city and you're just spinning because all the buildings is.
That's right. You're just looking up, bumping all into people and everything else, looking up.
Because you're mesmerized because the two of the young ladies, no, maybe one of them never traveled, never got on a plane. And this was her first time to come to New York City. So I was wonderful. Like, and to know that I was able to do that. And we were, I'm not bragging on it because it was possible because I had great clients that paid me that I can offer it to the kids. I put them up in a hotel in the middle of Manhattan. We had dinner everywhere. I took them to everywhere I knew I wanted to go. I could go. I gave them a taste of it. A taste of it. Right. I made sure they were taken care of. We went to the Metropolitan Museum. I got one of my other clients that I'm also on her leadership team, Deborah Koensberg, who owns Noir et Blanc and the Thrifty Hog. These girls did a window in Manhattan, redressed a window.
Oh, that's fabulous.
Oh, because I wanted these kids, for selfish reason, I want them to remember Auntie Myrdith treated me well. I wanted that.
Right.
And
that
was
created
the impact
MIPs. and you created MIPs, and those experiences will be with them for a lifetime. So we are through UNCF, and it's coming up. But you've been rocking and rolling for the Black Business Expo, moderating all of the programming that's been going on. Tell us about, oh girl, you just tickle me. So tell us about the Black Business Expo.
I met Dr. Kelly through Maureen Martin, another young lady that owns her own business, a business owner, women-owned business. And she invited me to be a speaker. And that was a few months ago. And I started speaking. And then I was like, I don't do nothing without Marsha. She interviewed me. And then when they asked me to speak on my own, I was like, oh, I do it with my business partner. Let's go. And that's where I invited you to do it. And why did I love the Black Business Expo? Because they showed all these amazing Black-owned businesses that oftentimes the world doesn't know exist. They put together a list and panel of the most phenomenal, well-educated, articulate people. And I say these people I look like a kindergartner next to these people. They have doctorates, not one or two. They have several. They're Black. That's what our UNCF HBCU.
Did you say, and they're Black?
They're Black.
And they're Black.
They're like my skin color without the ash. These people are Black. Oh my God. When I tell you I'm excited.
Right. It's wonderful.
Excited.
It's
and
wonderful.
These are the things that I want my UNCF students to see, is to see all these Black businesses that exist, that need your help, that are in your community, because it started in North Carolina, and I think they have Georgia, all in the South. These are Southern people doing this.
Right.
These are not
rocking and rolling.
Right.
Rocking and rolling.
Yeah. These are not New Yorkers, Northerners, privileged, whatever. I'm not saying that they're not privileged either, because I'm sure they are, but these people are business owners, not one, 2, 3 businesses. They're working with multi-million-dollar accounts globally. And I'm like, whoa, I never saw that growing up. I grew up in a predominantly white community that I only knew white spaces, white luxury spaces. So that's why it's instilling me to the Gucci's, the Pradas, the Hermes, and all of that. And that's something that I have a hard time detaching from, because I wasn't exposed to it as much when I was young. So all I knew was white spaces. Then by the time I think I was 20 and I was married, and I think I had my first child, or I just had my first child. I met Deborah Hairbay, a Black-owned business, and she was braiding hair. And this woman was charging people $750 to
for a
braid their hair. These
I'm in the wrong business. Wait a minute.
What? She was an icon. She was editor, writing. She's the one that brought me into the fashion industry, because working with her, editor Diane Hendy came into the salon, got her hair braided, and got a manicure and pedicure, wrote a little article about us. And then I asked her foolishly, hey, can I advertise in your magazine? She goes, honey, you can't afford it, but guess what I can do? I need a manicurist on set. Can you come in and do manicures? And when I say I was a celebrity manicurist, out the gate, the first job I got was doing nails for a celebrity. It was at that time, it was a group For Real. When Danny Glover and Mel Gibson's movie, I forgot the name of it, was out, I met the who played the daughter, the light-skinned girl. I did her nails. And it just kept going and going and going and going. And that was my exposure, not through the white spaces, but through the Black spaces. So I want to beg us to not think that Black spaces can't give you opportunities. The opportunity came through a Black space, through a Black business that I was in. I was just smart enough, hungry enough to navigate my way into all the spaces, because why? My parents never told me I couldn't.
Right.
They always told me that you could go wherever you want, as long as you have your eyes open and your ears open, and you know who owns the room, and you respect it, and you know how to walk out when it no longer serves you and is safe for you.
Wait a minute. Did you just wait, back up. Did you just say you need to know who owns the room?
Yes, I did. Absolutely. You need
Who
to know who
owns the room.
Yep.
Can you expand upon who owns the room?
And not everybody's going to agree with my philosophy, you know, and I know this.
That's okay.
Yes, America was occupied, because I don't believe nobody owns any land, because you can't take it with you when you die. Was occupied by the Native Americans. Yes. The Pilgrims, the Europeans, did come here. But from some of my research, Black people also was here because they were shippermen, and they were, you know, what do you call those? Shippermen and, you know, pirates and all that. Longshoremen, all of that. So they were here in this space too as free men. They were already here. The Spanish that introduced slavery and the Europeans that introduced slavery, and then when slavery became commodity, Black skin, Black bodies became commodity, became capital, that's when the influx and things started to get shady. Right. And this is just my studies that I've done, you know.
Okay.
And so I'm sitting here and I'm listening. So when America comes here, and now who owns, in my opinion, who runs it, I should say, not owns it.
Yeah, but I like, well, hold on a minute, because I like that term, who owns the room, because there are those who do own that room, and they will only allow you to say so much in their space.
Period. And you have to understand that. So this is not, because the Bible tells us a lot of things too, if we really read it, about timing. You know, God may have been the creator of the world, but he says it's in the power and the hands of the wicked one. He knows who's still
be clear.
Be clear. You could play games and say that God,
because all those little demon monkeys are all over everywhere. They're just little demon monkeys.
He already said it.
Demon monkeys.
So if you don't want to take notes, that's on you. But you better walk into that room. However, what I know is, so this space is run currently by white vision, white standard. When the Constitution was written, it was not with the mindset of the commodity, the money taking over or being our equal. They didn't bring us here. We didn't come on a cruise ship. We didn't come here as partners.
I was on the cruise. I don't know about you, but I was on the cruise ship. When they start stacking bodies, I was like, yeah, that won't be me. Like, yo, we go.
So I know all of this, and I keep it in mind, and I know how to navigate my way into a space. So I know what you think you know. I know what you think I am, but I'm going to let you know differently. As long as you stay in your space and I stay in my space, and I know how to walk in to different spaces and know when to speak and when to not, because even Jesus, when he stood before Pontius Pilate, when Pontius Pilate asked him a question and said, are you king? And he says, you yourself are saying it. There were some things he didn't even answer. I'm not going to bother, because no matter what I said, you already have your mind made up.
Right. It's not worth it.
It's not worth it.
Save that breath.
I'm going to save my energy because I'm going to need it, because I know what y'all about to do to me. So that's okay. So that's how I walk into this space and this environment that I work in. You know, I know that while I own World Bride Magazine and MLM Represent. I'm still looking to do with business with people that don't look at like me, who have generations of wealth and power ahead of me. So I walk into there knowing the limits that they will set on me, the limits that I have, and the limits I need to do to have to protect myself. And the
so
way
you're managing your expectations.
Absolutely. I walk in there eyes wide open. And I teach that to the interns, the people that work with me. But what I do with my students and my interns, I walk them into the space and I tell them, here's the trick. We come in as editors of World Bride Magazine. Not everybody needs to know you're the boss, because they're like, Miss Myrdith, why don't you tell them you own it? I don't need to. Not everybody needs, because if you think about it, let's go back to Jesus. He didn't tell everybody he was the Messiah. He told the selected few. They had to come to that conclusion themselves. So I walk in the same space. I sit there, I walk into the space. Hi, I'm the editorial director of World Bride Magazine. Now, you did your homework and you did your research on me. If like
you would already
what
know.
Said, Google me, you would know who I am. You would know who I am. So
you and Jocelyn. Yes.
But it's just like, what do you
real.
say to that? Google me and you'll find out. And then I walk into this space. I'm here to do a job. I'm here to get content from my magazine to share with my people. When you tell me I am not invited, you don't want me here, I have one of two choices. Bow out gracefully and take my pride with me and create my own space, or I'm going to fight you, but I need to know what I'm fighting you for, and is it worth it? Long run.
What's the return on that?
Exactly. Who's going to benefit from it? You know what I'm saying? And the very people that I'm fighting for, did they get the memo that I'm going in? Or do they know I'm going in so they can come for me and protect me? Do you know what I'm saying? So I think it's about knowledge. And that's one of the things that Black Business Expo, we talked about a lot today, was knowledge and access to information and utilizing it. Dr. Michael Grayson was talking about credit and credit score and so on.
That was a great
oh
show.
My goodness.
Yeah.
And just knowing what to do with that information. I didn't even know you can have a 990 credit score. What the heck is that? 990? That's perfect. And he says it's possible. He taught us how to get your credit. He's like, why would you pay somebody for a year or 6 months to watch your credit automatically release itself?
Right.
It can happen anyway. If they tell you 6 months and they have a disclaimer that literally says we cannot remove anything that is false from you. Right. He called all of us out and he says,
period.
He said 90% of my clients, you're in that situation because you didn't pay the bill. I was like, wait.
Period.
He said, you didn't pay the bill.
Period.
So I can't remove it. So don't pay me to tell you what you already know. Just wait it out or pay the bill.
Yes. Period.
And that's with life. So I didn't only look at it as a credit tip. I looked at it as life tip. Are you ready to pay the bill? These decisions, are these relationships going to enhance your credit or decrease your credit? And that's with people. And you and I talk about this all the time. Anybody that walks into my space at this tender age that I'm at, if you're not a part of my peace of mind, I'm sorry, you have the wrong house. Do you need a map to get you somewhere else? Because you can't stay here.
Right. It's time to go.
And we have to, and that's
when
what
it ceases to be. When it ceases to be fun, it's time to go. Period. Period. So let's talk about all of the things that is going on with World Bride Magazine. You have a couple of new things coming up, and you've been doing all kinds of wonderful work. What's been going on?
So we're so proud of the content that we've been creating. So we have writers in the UAE, Dubai, Qatar, that's covering that, the MENA area of the Middle East. We just got a writer. I'm so excited, in Thailand. So she's covering Katie. She just came on board. I'm super excited. She's been writing today. One of her articles went live. So I'm super excited about that. Yeah, I'm excited. We still have our team, Dave in London, taking care of us there. Of course, the US, the market is always good and things are starting to open up. We're super excited. Just got a new client, Nian Lopez, who got a chance to speak. And we have a wedding, so within 3 months, this new client under MLM Represent landed a wedding in New York City. And it's a pretty cool person too. She's going to be doing a wedding for an executive of Viacom, so I'm proud to be able to deliver something like that. Bridal Fashion Week is happening April 5th through the 8th. So please follow us on all social media platforms so you can see some of the things live. The Bridal Tabletop Show of dinnerware, flatware, so we're going to go and see Wedgwood and see, Waterford. Wedgwood and Waterford. And we're going to go see Crystal and all these wonderful tabletop brands. And what I'm super excited is that Sheila Bridges of Harlem Toile just launched her private plate collection with Afrocentric motifs, and I want everybody to please go and check out Sheila Bridges and Harlem Toile. This woman is brilliant. She's a home decor designer and she has beautiful Black art and she is also part of the Met Museum, and it's a huge Afrofuturism, and she's a part of that whole thing, and it's just gorgeous. So we have always had date night, but we couldn't do it because of COVID. So on first, we decided
next week.
Yes. So March, for the whole week, you're right. One of another partnering brand, Manhattan Manor and Rosie O'Grady's, they have dedicated 1 week where people can come to the restaurant and eat for $79, and $20 of that $79 will be donated to Music Kitchen, Kelly Hull Tompkins' organization that brings classical music to the shelters. And music is just a peace of mind that we need. Our souls get fed through music. All our emotions, whether we're happy, we're sad, we're excited, you can hear music, through it. So it's pretty cool.
It goes through your whole spirit.
It really does. And that's the wonderful thing about, doing that. So we're going to be, so that the restaurant is going to be donating that. But on March 30th, we're having a private shopping experience with my girls, Marsha Tues. You're not going to be there physically, but you'll be there virtually. Sonia Hudson, Amanda Smith, Luisa Diaz, and yes, and we're literally going to have a shopping experience at a luxury store.
Yes,
and they're
undisclosed.
Yes,
private.
Undisclosed. But the colors are orange and brown. I'll leave it right there. So that's that night. So we can prep because they just launched a makeup line. And so I'm inviting a few of my friends to come and join us and see the products. And then, it's just to prep us and make people feel good and excited. At the end of the day, it's at the end of the day, we're going
make sure
to
that
spend
you
money.
send me a bag. Send me the little
honey,
gift bag.
Your name is already attached. Don't worry about that. You're taken care of. And then on March 31st, oh yeah, honey. March 31st is going to be at Carnegie Hall. Kelly is going to be performing at Carnegie Hall. And we are just super excited and that's going to be date night. And we're going to listen to music. And the beautiful thing about Kelly's performances, the words, the poetic words are put to music, which is traditionally not done. It's usually Pulitzer Prize winning people or composers, or like they would have done tremendous stuff. She literally took the words of these our citizens, our neighbors, and put them to music, and she's gifting it to them at a night of performance, you know, which is so super charming and exciting. The tickets are only $35. And right
How do they
after,
buy the tickets? How do they buy the
well, they
tickets?
can contact me, Myrdith.
How?
MYRDITH .WBM@gmail.com. I only have a few tickets, and we saved the few tickets that I had just for this and World Bride Magazine to do, you know, because the tickets already sold out. It's all sold out. There's nothing to buy outside.
But there's part of your group tickets, right, that we have.
This is my group ticket. So now the group, a small group of us is going to Manhattan Manor, Grady, Rosie,
Joe Grady,
after, and we're gonna have dinner and do it the Gilded Age style, you know, just be dressed and just have a beautiful time to celebrate life, living, good music, and I think after everything we've been through for the past 2 years, we just want something to feel good. We want a reason to dress up. We want a reason to give back, you know, and share and feel not hopeless, you know, and that to me was why we're doing it. And that's how I feel, because this Thursday, the 25th, we're going to UNCF's gala at Cipriani's, you know, serving there. So I need a reason to dress up. Trust me, I have no problem walking down the street with a gown on, you know, none whatsoever, you know, but to know that we can do this while helping people, young people in our community, and those I'm good, you know, I'm not perfect. It doesn't mean that anything, life couldn't happen to me, you know, tragedy couldn't hit me, but what it does do to me is make me appreciate every single moment of my life and the people that I choose to surround myself with.
Right, because it's very selective. And you know, too often we forget where we are, and we give so much of ourselves, but it's not reciprocated, right? And so you go through this process. Well, at some point you've got to create boundaries. And I know we're all at this boundary place, right? That we're not dealing with the foolishness. So give us some parting remarks, because, you know, you're a real serious businesswoman. You're a real serious coach, an excellent friend, in spite of all my madness too. So I have to say
mine
that.
Too.
Oh yeah, well, I know. And so, but we still love each other. And the key here, though, is that these two events that are coming up, that are supporting supporting people. They're supporting people. They're supporting the empowerment of others. And so as we sit in this pandemic, and we sit and we watch the world change, the question I have is, what are you doing for others? And you don't have to put it in the chat, but rather I ask you to put it in your prayer closet on the wall, or put it in your notebook of the things that you have to do, because we have to give not only to our family, but we have to give to others. And I commend you, Myrdith, for giving so much of yourself to others. And I appreciate our friendship, number one, but moreover, I have a lot of respect for you as a businesswoman, as a community leader, and as a person who just cares. So thank you for joining us today.
It's my pleasure, and it's an honor, you know. So my parting statement would be you know, Victor always says this to me, you know, when he's about to ask me something ridiculous, he says, "What would Jesus do?"
Right.
So I keep that in my forefront, you know, if I truly am a follower and a Christian, and at least trying to practice it. We all fall short. What would he do, and what would he think of me? You know, am I being kind? Because there is a scripture that he says that, you know, they asked him, he says, if you fed me, you clothed me, you whatever. And then they said, "Lord, when did we do that to you?" He says, when you did it to my followers, you did it to me.
To me, that's right.
And this is why I try. I'm not perfect at it. I try my best to make sure that I give back genuinely. Don't do it for show. Don't
Right.
do it for display.
It's from your heart.
Yeah.
It's from your
That's
heart.
my only thing. And if I'm not, I want people to pull my coattail and be like, girl, what you doing?
Oh, well, you know, you have enough people around you who will do that. That you don't have to worry. Thank you so much. Thank you,
Thank
everybody, for
you.
joining us and having Myrdith Leon-McCormack with us, Diego Alvaro, and Doc Cheatham. This has been a great show. Appreciate your time, and we'll be catching up soon. We'll see you next week, Tuesday. And we'll have another exciting show for you. Take care, and thank you for joining us. Marsha Tues signing off, WKIM Media Network.